Hey everybody, Dave here, and today I have something a little different for you. Instead of me giving you a look at a new Paizo produced Pathfinder adventure or adventure path, I'm instead going to give you a look at a brand new NASA adventure. That's right, NASA apparently is getting into the tabletop RPG game, and they have officially released their first adventure. So I should say that this is just that. It is a single adventure. It's not a complete rule set. It is a single adventure that is designed, intended to be sort of system agnostic and be used for whatever fantasy RPG system you prefer. I think it was certainly designed with 5e in mind, but there's nothing in it that would prevent you from using it in Pathfinder or again, whatever system you prefer. So it's called The Lost Universe, and it was written by Christina Mitchell, who I can only assume wasn't satisfied with the nerd cred you get from working for NASA. She wanted all the nerd cred, so she's also now doing fantasy role-playing games with a NASA twist as well. The adventure itself is divided into two parts, two sections, but both parts are fairly brief, and they are designed to be played over a single session of 3 to 4 hours. Now, this is a one-shot. So again, 3 to 4 hours, one shot. But you might be surprised to find that the document, the PDF, is 44 pages long, which I feel like at 44 pages, that makes this probably the longest one-shot documentation I've ever seen. But there's good reason for that, and I'll get to that in a second as I break down the adventure with you. It's also stated as being designed for a party of 4 to 7 players with level 7 to 10 characters. It may be worth pointing out that there's really only one combat encounter in this adventure, and it is challenge level 8 for both D&D 5e and Pathfinder 2nd Edition. They're both a single 8th level creature. And I'm not real sure with the math and encounter balance in 5e because I haven't DM'd it in so long. But with Pathfinder 2nd Edition, 4 to 7, 7 to 10th level characters are going to steamroll a single encounter with a level 8. Even if we took the lowest possible of that range and said we're running this for 4 players and they're all 7th level, that would still make an encounter with a single level 8 opponent a low difficulty encounter. And plus, it would be the only combat encounter of the day, so your 4 level 7s are walking into that fight with all their spell slots, all their focus points, all of their other miscellaneous resources, and their single day use magic items all ready to go and just annihilate this guy. So we'll talk about that in a little bit as well, but just be aware that the advertised range of 4 to 7 players of level 7 to 10 characters is probably overkill for this particular adventure. So let's talk a little bit about the PDF, the document itself. One of the reasons why it is 44 pages long is because it's more than just the adventure. It also has to do world building and talk about this new setting that NASA is introducing, and also kind of recognize that this is not an adventure who has the primary goal of pure entertainment. Yes, they want to entertain you with this, but they also want to educate you. They also want to teach you about all kinds of neat things about outer space that you may not be aware of. So there is an appendix in it that goes into the actual science behind a number of the different concepts that are introduced in the adventure, specifically used to overcome a couple of puzzles. And there's also a lengthy background to tell you about the setting and where this is taking place, because it's not going to take place on Golarion. It's not going to take place in the Forgotten Realms. It's going to take place in a new NASA setting on the planet of Exlaris. So it has to take time to build up all the knowledge you need about where this place is and why it's important. The general vibe of Exlaris is you can think of it as a fantasy setting. So there are elves and orcs and so on and so forth. And it does lean a little bit towards technology and science as well, but not super far in that direction. There are magical lampposts that give light. And there's other sort of trappings of technology, but not so far in that direction that you would really feel like you're playing, Starfinder or something that's really science fantasy. The general story of Exlaris is hundreds of years ago in its past. It was a thriving, beautiful fantasy world, not unlike Galarian, or actually not unlike planet Earth. And one day there was an event called the Breaking. And without going into all of the details, the Breaking caused the planet of Exlaris to be knocked out of its orbit and sent flying across the cosmos. And it is now a rogue planet that is just on its own course through outer space. Through some magical shenanigans, they were able to create a shield that protects its atmosphere and protects it from all the other harms and dangers of outer space travel. But that's the idea. It's a rogue planet called Exlaris, but on the planet, it is very much a fantasy setting. So let's go ahead and get into the adventure itself. And so at this point, I'm going to give you all the big spoiler warning. If this is something you have an interest in being a player for, then I would encourage you to go ahead and click the like button, click the subscribe button, and then stop watching the video so you don't get spoiled for anything. That said, I will be keeping the spoilers fairly light on minute details. If you've never watched one of my adventure overviews before, what I tend to do is give a very spoiler light overview of the adventure so that you can decide if it's worth checking out more. So by the end of this video, you should have an understanding enough of the story and plot that you can decide if you want to go download the free PDF and read all the details, or if it's not to your liking. So the adventure, interestingly enough, even though players come to the table with their level 7 to level 10 designed characters for your adventure RPG system of choice, the game doesn't begin with those characters on Exlaris or any other fantasy world. Instead, the adventure begins in an alternate version of our Earth. And in this alternate version of our Earth, all the players sitting around the table, they work for NASA. They work for NASA, and this isn't our Earth. There's one big difference between their Earth and our Earth, and that is, in our Earth, we have the Hubble Space Telescope and all of the innovations that followed it and everything that benefits humanity that came from Hubble and all the other sciences and technologies that came after Hubble. In this alternate version of Earth, where your players are working for NASA, the Hubble telescope was never launched. And so that world is similar to our world, but without all the benefits that came after Hubble. As a matter of fact, I want to read to you this statement in the book. As the adventure states, in a world without Hubble, nobody knows the age of our universe, or that black holes lurk in the centers of galaxies, or just how much beauty the cosmos contains. Without Hubble, there is also no James Webb Space Telescope. Without the critical experience of servicing missions completed by astronauts in space, the International Space Station also never happened. Technology that detects cancer, tracks endangered species, decodes ancient manuscripts, and more are also lacking. So, this is, as I said before, I'm sure part of the goal is to entertain, but it's also to educate. And one of the pieces that they're educating is on the value of Hubble. And I think by extension, the value of NASA as a whole and why it's important that we have them and that we do fund them through our tax dollars. So that is not just a blurb at the beginning, but that's really at the heart of the adventure. The real heart of the adventure is what happened to the Hubble Space Telescope in this alternate reality that our players begin the game in. So they begin as themselves, except they work for NASA, but they always have felt like something is missing. Like there's something they can't put into words, but something is just off and something is weird. And that is the absence of Hubble. Through some magical fantasy RPG shenanigans, those players get transported sort of kind of quantum leap style from their alternate Earth to Exlaris. Or it's better to say not that they are transported to Exlaris, but their consciousness is transferred from their Earth into the bodies of the characters that they created who are in Exlaris. So for the purposes of this game, you might have to add an extra layer of explanation if you want to take your characters out of the Forgotten Realms and into this adventure, into Exlaris for one adventure. But the way the adventure is written assumes that your characters are native to Exlaris, but they're getting a piggyback consciousness from the players coming from this alternate Earth. And when they basically take control of these characters' bodies. So they have all of their memories and all their experiences from the past Earth, but they have an intrinsic understanding of all of their heroic characters' abilities. So they can still cast spells, they can still do amazing feats of martial prowess, but they have no clue where they are. They've never seen a dark elf before. They are completely at a loss for where they are. In fact, they won't even recognize each other when they first arrive, because again, everybody's now in a different body. So that sets the stage, and the adventure, especially the first part of the adventure, deals with the players coming to understand that they're in a different place, and that they begin an investigation that leads them to the captain of the guard for the city that they arrived in. And the captain, she knows that they're from this alternate Earth, which is very convenient to kind of speed things up in a one-shot. And essentially, they've been summoned to help solve this mystery of this Hubble, and also hopefully track down a few missing researchers who have disappeared over the last couple of days or maybe the last couple of weeks, which are disappearances they believe is related to this Hubble Space Telescope mystery. The players are directed to an observatory where they meet the headmaster of the observatory, who kind of introduces them to the concept of the Hubble telescope. Again, these characters have never heard of Hubble. They know they're from they're from an Earth that they've always felt something is wrong. There's a Hubble-shaped hole in their lives, and but when they meet this headmaster in the observatory, they get their first real introduction to the Hubble telescope. And this is, again, another key educational moment in the adventure, because they're presented with a puzzle that can only be solved through a very basic, simple, rudimentary understanding of blue shifts and red shifts. And the appendix of the adventure does give you more detail about the science behind this. But once the players engage with a very simple puzzle and they engage with the concepts of blue shifts and red shifts, they are revealed a clue which directs them to their next location, which is a set of old ruins in the forest west of town. And that leads to the world's briefest dungeon crawl. It's very simple. There's no maps provided, so you'll either have to do this theater of the mind, or you can draw your own. But the rules for the dungeon are just two simple paths, and they can choose path A or path B. They both lead to the same place. Path A takes them into a corridor with a trap, that they'll have to navigate around or take a little bit of damage. And Path B takes them through an area with another puzzle, another educational puzzle. This time dealing with the concept of gravitational lenses. And just like the previous puzzle about blue shifts and red shifts, they'll have to engage with a very simple, basic understanding of gravitational lenses. And again, the appendix gives you, as the GM or DM, more information about the concept of gravitational lenses. And regardless of which corridor they go down, they either navigate past the trap or they solve the gravitational lens puzzle. That brings them to the final chamber of the adventure, where they are confronted with the villain of the story. As you can probably expect, this turns into a combat scenario, and after defeating the lone enemy, which again is challenge level 8 creature in D&D 5e and a level 8 enemy in Pathfinder 2nd edition. After that, they basically save the day. The adventure is over. They get to return back home to their Earth with the Hubble telescope, and when they arrive there, the world has adapted to this new, basically the timeline's been repaired, so to speak. And that brings their alternate timeline in sync with our timeline. And they have all the benefits in their world of the Hubble telescope, the James Webb Space Telescope, the soon-to-be launched Roman telescope, and all those other things that came afterwards as a result of having the Hubble are now part of their world too. That's the general gist of the adventure, but it also gives you a framework for if some of the players may decide they don't want to go home. They may have grown attached to this world of Exlaris. They may have developed friendships with some of the NPCs they encounter and want to stay and help them research their troubles and their need for greater astronomy as well. And so there is a little bit of a path to future adventures of your own design in that direction. So that is basically what the Lost Universe is all about, the new one-shot science fantasy educational adventure by Christina Mitchell for whatever your favorite tabletop RPG is, but it's pretty clear it was designed with 5e in mind. And I only bring that up because if you're not running it in 5e, there may be some really, really, really minor things that you have to do yourself. And when I say minor, I mean very minor. For example, it makes use of terms like make an investigation skill check. And investigation doesn't exist as a skill in Pathfinder or some other systems that are not D&D 5e. Also, this is not a product that uses the OGL. So I think that's another reason why they removed all references to 5e and anything that heavily calls upon Dungeons & Dragons. Although there is still investigation skill checks, there's still references to the Darklands as a subterranean realm where dark elves come from and stuff like that. This is not part of the open game license. I think even NASA doesn't want to have to deal with the headaches that come from Hasbro after last January and last February's fun with them pushing the OGL 2.0 or whatever they were calling it. As far as recommendations and tweaks for this adventure, I would say keep in mind that this is a simple adventure. Nothing about it is intended to be challenging. It is largely intended as an educational tool, but I can also see people using it as sort of the same way a lot of gaming groups do, like a special Christmas-themed one-shot every year where your adventurers take a pause on whatever grand story they're in, and then they do this one session little side quest that deals with, the Krampus is attacking a village, or snowmen have been animated and running amok, or what have you, and then they go back to their regular scheduled adventure. With the exception that the characters are intended to be natively from Exlaris, you can make some twists and make this work as a similar little side jaunt in your regular sessions, just so you have a little fun and maybe introduce people to scientific concepts they're not familiar with. Or if you've got that one player who is a huge space nerd, well, throw them a bone and do a special NASA-themed one-shot. I will also say that, again, this was designed for simplicity, for ease, and to be delivered in a one-shot. I think if I was to run this, I would probably I would probably take the ruins area and make it a little bit more of an interesting dungeon crawl. There's opportunities to add additional puzzles of your own design, additional traps of your own design, and maybe a couple of wandering monsters, so that there's not just one single climactic battle. And with that climactic battle, I probably wouldn't make it a one villain scenario. I would give the villain some henchmen, a lieutenant. Maybe they're using their magic in the Hubble telescope to view other worlds, and they're summoning other creatures from other worlds. Maybe they've got some, automatons or something that can help in the battle, so that it's not just 7 to 10, or sorry, 4 to 7 people all on one. And also make it a less trivial combat encounter. So that's it for Lost Universe. I will leave a link in the description for where you can go to download this and find more information. And let me know in the comments if you have any questions about this adventure, or if you've run it or are planning to run it, any questions you might have. And I also want to take just a brief moment to thank everybody who supports me and this channel, whether that's by clicking the like button, subscribing to the channel, subscribing to the Patreon, or buying a super thanks. I greatly appreciate everything you do to support me. And with that, thanks for watching, take care, and happy gaming.